and then we are going to get started. All right. So welcome everybody to the Blacc Study group. So we've been doing this for a few weeks now, and there's some people who've been here for like the entire program, all the sessions. Thank you so much for participating. Thank you so much for supporting this platform. Today, I would like to welcome Tinashe Nyamudoka. Did I finally say that right? I didn't. Oh my goodness. After so many years, I still cannot get it right. I'm gonna unmute you, T. Wait, did you mute yourself? Okay, there we go.
So it's Doka, like at the end, Doka. It's not Do, but yeah, it's fine. Nyamudoka is fine. Yeah.
I'll get it one of these
Bit of
days.
a tongue twister.
It is. So Tinashe is the director or the head of the beverage program at the Test Kitchen, which is usually #1 in South Africa for restaurants. It toggles between that and La Colombe. And he's an amazing guy. He's also a brand owner, a winemaker. He has his brand Kumusha, and I'm super excited to have him here today. So he's like a rock star in the wine industry. So
listen to
the platform.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me, and welcome everyone. Well, I just didn't get to scroll who's there, so it's good to be around. And yeah, looking forward to chatting about life, wine.
Yes,
studying.
Wine is
so
our life.
The good thing is I just came with a open canvas. I just didn't write any prepared notes, so I'm just going to be flowing. So I hope everyone doesn't mind.
I love it. And you know what? I didn't even, usually I write down some questions that I want to ask people, but I feel like me and you go way back. So I think I just wanted to flow like a conversation that we have when we're sitting, you know, at home and talking about wine and business and people and service. And so that's what we're going to do. But how are you holding up during this whole Corona madness?
Yeah, it's been, the most difficult part is like, for us who work in the hospitality and you used to be seeing and meeting people in the restaurant. As for me, Test Kitchen, we'd meet every different person every day. So I was meeting 40 new people a day. So in a week I'm meeting, like 200 different people. So in a month, so I just missed that part. But yeah, I'm keeping up under the circumstances. I wish I could have more alcohol in my house, but yeah.
I wish I could smuggle some. I definitely would if I could.
Otherwise, it's been a great time of reflection. Things are gonna change. Thinking about what next, and just been reflecting a lot, reading a lot, wine, coffee, books. Just what you can, just to enrich the mind.
Yes, yeah. I've been doing the same thing. I hadn't been reading as much before Corona, but now I've been actually reading books, which is really kind of good for me. Yeah, so I know what you mean. I'm used to having people over to my house and entertaining, and so it just feels weird not to be able to say, come over for some wine, come over for a meal. So it's tough on all of us, but we will get through it. Can you talk to us about your position at the Test Kitchen? Like, what's your official title? I just call you the wine master at the Test Kitchen, but like wine and beverage master. But can you tell
Yeah, it's precisely so. So I'm the head sommelier and beverage manager. So I'm responsible for the entire beverage program, from procurement, selling it, stocking it, and obviously, Test Kitchen is more about food. And we're really big on food and wine pairings. So I handle that mostly, obviously together with the chef, but most of the time, I'm doing the stuff on my own and sourcing and pairing with it. I love training with my staff who are really well equipped, small team at the Test Kitchen, but yeah, that's basically it. And for years, I've been running a separate wine maturation program with Wine Cellar, so I'm responsible for that as well.
With Wine Cellar, what do you mean? So like you collect wines and then you just hold them for people, or?
Yeah, when I started the Test Kitchen, I was coming from big hotels. I was coming from the oyster box. Then I worked at the one and only. So, you know, it's a lot of wine you're handling. So you don't have that pressure of stocking and having a big cellar. So when I got to the test kitchen, it was a bit much more smaller, and, you know, the budgets are very small. So you have to be careful in terms of selection and what you could use in future, what could use, what you won't get in future but get now, you know, those allocated wines. So I think I started this very first year I was there, just buying. So for 3 years or 4 years, actually, I was just buying. The accountants and look, not knowing. So in year 4, that's where they realized, oh, geez, this guy is sitting on millions of wines, stored wine cellar. But, you know, but when then I was starting to use it in year 4, it really made sense to them. So I was really exonerated. So probably that's one of the biggest legacies I'll say I have created a test kitchen too.
Oh, very cool. Can you talk a little bit about training, since this is a study group and most of the people in the group either work in the wine industry already, like they're working on the floor as a waiter, but maybe they want to become a somm. And then there's some people who are somms or junior somms. Can you talk about, like, do you have like a standard for how you train people, or like some key things that you focus on when you train people to work on the floor?
Yeah, I think my training is more, you know, I have to be honest, I'm not a big fan of, you know, books, and I suck at admin, you know, maybe that's a good excuse. So I don't like paperwork. I don't like, you know, studying from the group. I'm more hands-on kind of guy, especially most of my team I've learned from watching what I do and asking questions, you know, direct asking of questions. That's been my style everywhere I've been. If you ask the guys I was at the one and only, or the guys I've groomed up at the oyster box and the test kitchen, it's always been about that. And I use it because it worked best for me when I was coming up as well. You know, I'll just go and ask questions, you know, silly questions. And you know, the guys were tutoring me, Eric Botta and Rebecca, you know, Luvo. Those guys will be like, you know, you never know until you ask. So I just ask any silly question. And the most silly question is the one that sticks with you, you know. Why are you using this wine? Why do you like this wine? And explaining there it's much more efficient than, you know, giving paper notes to go and study, or, you know, being military that this is how you're supposed to say it. This is not what you're supposed to say. So I love one-on-one engagement. And for me, as a big team, you know, if you're working in a restaurant with 10 different staff, you can't use the same method to everyone. You know, people understand wine in a different level, at a different pace. They say it in a different way. So I just go one-on-one. I understand Chuani, you know, understands wine. This is the language I used to train her. Whereas Don understands wine in this way. This is the way I train him. You can't just be a one shoe fits all.
You know what I love about your style as a sommelier is, I've had dinner at the test kitchen one time, and it was a very special moment. And you were my somm that day, and even though we're friends, like outside of the restaurant, you were still so professional. But you're not like the typical somm who comes over with the white towel around their arm and they're like intimidating and condescending. You're so laid back. You have this way of just like really talking to people about wine. Can you talk a little bit about that style and like why you chose that approach?
Yeah, you know, it's quite interesting when you say that. So for me, when I got into the profession, and I'm talking about, this is roughly 8 or so years ago. Like, so I started off as not even a waiter. I started off as a runner, you know, polishing plates and cutlery at the back. But I've been a person who gets into a situation, understands, takes time to learn the systems and everything. So I was fortunate there were a couple of guys ahead of me, you know. I'll keep on referring to them, like Luvo, Eric, you know, there was Tato, Greg Mutambe, who's the 12A. So I'd look at these guys and be like, these guys are so good. But you know, you get a feeling of, okay, geez, gonna fit in, because what they did was, okay, you know what, I can't be them. And definitely there's no one who's better than any of them. So I was almost, okay, this is what I'm good at and this is what is good at. I'm going to take the goods, but I took the almost bad in them. What they didn't do well is what I then tried to perfect. So I'd look at a guy like Eric. Oh, Eric is really good with this, but there he could do better. So that's what I'll better myself at. Then in the end, all those bad I saw in those guys and perfected it made me who I am now. So I kind of fit in there because, you know, if people look at this guy and say he's good, but he's not good at this, but then I'll be good in what they're not good at. So in the end, I realized, you know what, as sommeliers, there's no one who's going to be better than anyone else. It's just how different and your approach and how your understanding of wine and how you articulate it, that's what makes people different. But they'll never be the best som unless if it's like, you know, the competitions we have about pouring wine and answering questions. But when you're on the floor and when you work in a restaurant, there's no one who's better than anyone. It's just embracing your style, understanding what you're best at, and just articulate it. So that's been my philosophy, actually.
I actually think that's great advice, because like you said, like Louvo, you know, I've been to the restaurant at the One and Only, and he's been my som there, and he has a very different style than you. And I'm not saying that one is better than the other. It's just totally different styles.
Yeah.
And it just works for each of you, your different styles. So I totally understand that. What about sales? So I think a lot of times people forget that, like, a sommelier on the floor of a nice restaurant or any restaurant, basically you're also a salesperson. So how do you integrate selling the wine into service? And how do you integrate the two things, selling and service?
It's been interesting. So like for me in my profession, you know, I was quite fortunate that before I got into wine, I was studying accounting on the side. So I didn't finish the accounting degree, probably with 3 modules left. But I had a bit of understanding of a financial background. So, you know, it's quite something I just have to say now in sommelier world, like at the moment, you know, people tend to concentrate in one avenue. Some are very good in technical service, but forget about the sales part, you know, the costing part. Whereas I feel, and I made it my mission that I just didn't want to be the best on the floor. I just wanted to be the best in understanding how to procure, you know, how to get good deals, how to sell it, how to cost it, how to make money for the restaurant. So if you look at me in a holistic way, I might not be 100% in everything, but I think I'm 80% proficient in what a sommelier has to be, understanding the subject, understanding the financial part, understanding the wine and selling. So going back to your question, it depends with the establishment. You know, I started off, I'll start the journey at the One and Only, where, you know, you're a sommelier, but you're not responsible for other stuff. You can be responsible for tasting and bringing the wine in the hotel. But sometimes, you know, purchasing and accounting handle the costing and budget. So for you, it's just punting at the end of the day. Same at maybe Oyster Box, a little bit involved. But what the test kitchen did to me, and which was quite stressful to begin with, was, you know, I go in there. I'm used to be working in hotels where I just say, guys, I want this wine. You get the purchasing manager to get in the wine. They cost it for you. They give you, you go change the price. Whereas at the test kitchen now, I was faced with, okay, now you've got to find the wine. Now you've got to cost the wine. Now you know how to sell it, how to store it, how to pay it. So I was really tested, and I'm glad I had that opportunity at the test kitchen where I was responsible for the whole entire thing. So every buck stopped with me. I needed to understand how the margins work, to be in line, how to profitize on this wine. Then obviously, firstly, you have to get a good deal on the wine, know how to sell it. And, you know, and one thing I was really flexible with is if you're working in hotels and these big establishments, you know, you get fixed cost prices and selling prices, of which sometimes, you know, I've learned to realize that that's what I didn't want to do. But obviously if you're working for someone, you gotta go with the rules. But at the test kitchen, I was very flexible, where I could understand, it's not every wine you get, you put in 300% markup. So I had that ability. So if you come at the test kitchen, I always wanted my wine program to be, I wanted people to come and drink the wine list. I didn't want people to come and be ripped off. They come here, I know I've got this bottle for this much, I'm just selling it for this much because it sells. But I wanted my wine program to be affordable. It had to be affordable because the food was expensive already. So people budgeted. So I had to find a fine line where I had to make the wine affordable, attractive, and make my wine list drinkable. So if you came at the test kitchen, my wine list is probably less than 10 pages. But it's quite flexible because of the nature of the restaurant. I can get bottles now, I punt it, I sell it, people. So, it won so many hearts and accolades because people, they'll be surprised. Not to saying other restaurants or establishments were charging overboard, but they'll be surprised that, okay, they're coming here, this bottle we spend that much, but yeah, this much. But obviously, my
go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Obviously, my bottom line was, Luke was the first one to compliment me. It's like, Tinashe, not only are you good on the floor, but geez, you're saving me money. So it was working. So it was working, yeah. So I think the selling part, to answer your question, has to be about getting the right one to start off with at the right price. You negotiate with these wine farms or sales reps. And be considerate in your markups and selling. I think that's the first most important question. You just don't want to put off someone with a good wine because of a price. If it's that high price, it has to be justifiable in a way. So I think once you get over that part, it's just your flair on the floor,
Exactly
our
what I was saying.
Yeah.
Exactly what I was saying about you. It's like you don't just take, like, some people, I feel like they take textbooks, sommelier, and then they just apply it across the board. So they say, if you're in a restaurant, you're supposed to mark up a wine 3 times, right? And then they just do that because without any thinking. But
not trying to say it's at the end of the day, it's a business, and some other people, model it as a business. But what I was good at is, a best sommelier understands the business where they're in. Then they model their program according to that. Well, if I was at the oyster box, obviously I would put 300 markup because that's the business. I have to work around there. But if you're not a good sommelier, if you're a good sommelier, So you have to understand.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's the first thing. You understand what works best, what sells, what doesn't sell, and you can't copy and paste, because it's quite different establishments. So if you're gonna come with something you control, you gotta model it in a way you be like, okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm sticking to it. If people don't like it, they don't like it. But if you don't have an identity and an authentic beverage program, you won't be successful, and no one will talk about you.
I love it. Do you think that you're able to negotiate and to leverage pricing for wines because of your relationships that you have with the actual wine farms? Because I do notice that, you seem to be really good friends with the wine farms, and even wine farms that aren't on your list. You know what I mean? It just seems like you have a good relationship where the wine farms respect you, they think highly of your opinion. How did you build that relationship with the wine farms?
Well, it's just trust, man. It's just, the first thing is you gotta be authentic, man. You gotta be you, and you gotta be direct. You gotta be honest, and you gotta be someone who builds up relationships very well. It's a relationship business at the end. Wine is a relationship business. So if you're not good friends with them, it doesn't have to be. I always put it in three tiers. I've got friendly relationships with some of the wineries and reps. I've got professional relationships. Maybe I don't like them as a friend, but I gotta keep that professional relationship. Then you get an understanding of like some dependable. Again, it depends with the establishment where you are. For me, relationships at the test kitchen were key because of the style of the restaurant, and how I wanted to model my beverage program. You know, I'm a small restaurant, so I'm not gonna want all those new releases because, like I said, for me, I receive every new guest every day. So it doesn't make sense if I'm getting something that's just been recently released that I know it's not ready to drink, and you get guys who come and punt that to me. So I think the biggest job for me at the test kitchen, or anywhere you can apply anywhere, is to first understand what works in your restaurant, have a clear program of your wine program and how you want to run it. So it makes it easy when someone approaches you with the wine to say no or yes. You know, someone who approached me with the wine, I'll definitely tell them I'm not going to waste time. This is how I run the test kitchen, and this is the type of wine I want. So this I'm not. So once you establish that, it makes it easy, and there's no feelings attached. You know, there's so much feelings in the wine industry where, you know, people sell on just relationships alone, like a new wine. So if you don't define your wine program, your beverage program, you end up being indecisive, or someone wants an appointment, then, you know, you just keep stalling. You know for a fact you don't want to talk to them, but you just keep them, giving them a date. I'm not ready. Whereas I learned to be like straight. If I'm gonna see you, I'll see you. Let's put it down. If I'm not seeing you, I'm not seeing you. So I think the wineries and the farm came to respect that I'm like that, to a point where, you know, before they even come to me, they know what they're offering me, and they know that what they're offering is good. So it was built over years. I can't say it was just an instant. It was built over years. Me understanding them and them understanding me, and us meeting in the middle.
Nice. Okay, we're going to start talking about Kumusha, but before we do that, does anybody have any questions about Tinashe and his work at the test kitchen? Any questions about being a somm on the floor? If you can just, let me see, oops, wait a second. If you can just raise your hand, I will unmute you. Just raise your hand, or you can type something in the chat box and I'll unmute you. Any questions for Tinashe? Okay, Silas. Okay, I'll unmute you. You can go ahead.
Hi, Tinashe.
How are you, Silas?
I would like to ask you, very well, thank you. I would like to ask you how you were able to develop your team. Perhaps you may not be able to be successful alone, and perhaps you have done quite a lot in terms of developing your team. Do you do a homegrown kind of a sourcing, or do you bring already qualified sommeliers from out there to work with them? Which is the approach that you prefer to work with to be able to achieve your goal?
Well, for developing my team, well, I'll say it's indifferent. Obviously, if you're working in a hotel, they gotta be, the easiest pull to get is from the waiting staff. And for me, it was important developing from within because they understand the culture already. And, you know, I always say, you know, there's some stuff you have to develop, especially in wine. I learned that wine is a subject you can be taught. I can pick up anyone who's not even working in the industry and teach them about wine, and they'll understand it. But you can't teach, you know, personality. You can't teach ethics. You can't teach, you know, it's not something that has to come natural. So for me, how I developed my style was finding those people with the right ethics, with the right frame of mind, with the right attitude, then teach them wine. Most of them didn't even want wine to learn about wine at all. But once I identify this ethic, it was easy for me to teach them wine. So you look at my time at the one and only, how many people I developed, my time at the oyster box. Same as the test kitchen, when I came there, it was a group of all waiters, and, you know, but once I identify their love, their ethics, and some I would say, okay, this guy I'm not going to train because it won't make sense as well. So I'm a big believer in developing within. But if there's exceptional talent out there, which I'm thinking is lurking, like, you know, you can bring them in your team, teach them the standards and work from there. But I think homegrown is the best. And it also leaves a continuity when you leave. Like when I left at the oyster box, I knew they were capable of people of continuing it. until they find someone to replace, same as the one and only. And it's the same when I leave the test kitchen.
Very good. Any more questions about being a somm, working on the floor? All right, Tunde. I've unmuted you. You could go ahead.
How's it, Tendai?
Yes.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, it's not a question but it's just a kind of advice I just want to ask from Tinashe. There's something you mentioned earlier, like you said you started one and only, then it's a hotel, same as I am working at a Telegraph, but at a hotel side. I found myself on a limited position because, like you said, we are the ones who do the markups for the wine, then we just put the wine in the wine list. But sometimes you went to the wine farm, then you taste the wine, you feel you love the wine, you want the wine to put in the list, but because of the rules we said before, the manager has got the full control of everything. Like maybe you're gonna say no, the price of the wine, or he doesn't like the wine. So I found myself very limited on growth, but I'm just gonna kind of ask you, how should you advise me to keep myself growing in this sommelier industry?
Oh, that's a very very interesting and good question. So it's it's the same blueprint. I went through a similar phase. It's quite challenging and frustrating, but what I found was better was, like, for instance, you go for a tasting, you find a wine that you really like and you find it's interesting to use at your establishment. The best way is to, you look at your wine list and you'll be like, okay, these wines are selling very good. These wines are not selling very good. This one has been sitting here, but it's keeping up space. So what you want to do is open up space on your list and go to your manager, whoever it is, you'll be like, see, this wine hasn't been selling. I'm gonna try and push it out, but once it's gone, there's a wine I want to replace, which is a very good value and I feel to sell better. That way I found it was easy for me to get trust with the management, and the guys who are there realize, okay, I wanted to move the wines. I just didn't want wines because I like it there, but I was creating room for it on the wine list. Then once that was gone, I was like, okay, we're not going to order it. Then I forced them to get the wines I like. And eventually that's how I worked it out. And eventually I was getting, they were trusting my judgment. Then in terms of growth and limitations, it's quite unfortunate that in South Africa there is not much establishments, really employing sommeliers at the top end, which is something I hope I can come up with a solution, but it's gonna take a while because they are in top positions, And to be honest, people have been there for a while. You look around and you be like, it's frustrating. I understand. It was frustrating for me. But at some point, you gotta keep on doing what you want and tasting and, find something to occupy you on the side. For instance, for myself, I went into wine judging. So if I wasn't at the restaurant, I was doing wine judging. When I started, probably the first 2-3 years, I was just sitting on these panels, just learning, not even getting paid. But it was something for me to do on the side. I was doing tastings, I was doing all this kind of stuff. Nowadays, people can do wine writing. There's not much wine writers amongst us, which is quite interesting. So, as a sommelier, you're there on the floor, but find some stuff which keeps you occupied on the side, which doesn't really affect your day job. Then when the opportunity comes for a position, you're in a stronger position to progress. I hope I've answered you.
Yeah, I think that's
you must go with
very good advice. Very good advice. That was actually one of my questions too, because a lot of times, typically at a restaurant, when you have something like this, the economy starts to hurt, or, like now we have a pandemic and they have to change their business model. Sommeliers are usually the first people they let go and then the last people that they hire. And so my question to you is going to be like, what advice can you give to people to ensure that they have a job after this, or what other things can they do with their sommelier profession if they studied, they have this education? So I think that you just answered that question.
Probably not in full, but yeah, to add on, maybe, it's something that I realized later on when I got into wine, but people, obviously you've mentioned, like, I'll say maybe a few guys like me and the guys in front of me and my colleagues in similar positions, like the Tongais, the Malvins, and, we created ourselves as being, not just being, pompous or being whatever, but we put ourselves out there and created this interest among, young sommeliers coming up. But what I realize is, not everyone wants to be a sommelier. You're going to be good at being a sommelier. And unfortunately, it's just one part where we've excelled. Whereas I feel young guys coming in, they're all looking to be sommeliers, whereas there is so much opportunities and possibilities in wine other than being on the floor and being a sommelier. So in my entire journey, if you unpack me as a person with the stuff I do, I said, okay, I'm a sommelier, but is there anything else I'm good at that I can start? That's why I started going into wine judging, wine tasting, creating my wine label, or going into wine investment, wine sales, just to trying to find where I'm good at. So I think for the young guys, especially in the Blacc and wherever you are, just don't look at being a sommelier as the it thing or as the only avenue. Just look at the entire value chain. Maybe you're good in marketing, so you're not going to excel on the floor as a sommelier. So just get a holistic look about it, and just don't think you're going to be a sommelier, because, only a few can make it.
That's very good advice. So, any more questions before we move on to Kumusha? So, speaking of like, expanding your streams of income, right? Because I think that's what we're all talking about too. And I think now more than ever, we're all realizing that, we need more streams of income, more so than just having a full-time job. And so you have this wine brand. Can you talk a little bit about how that wine brand started, what that wine brand means?
Oh yeah, so the wine brand, geez, I think I've always wanted to be like entrepreneur, like growing up. I've always wanted to be like that, but never expressed it in any way. But I think the idea came when I was in Durban. Like that's around 2014, 2015. So I was in KwaZulu-Natal, and it's a fact, Durban is not as as busy in wine like Cape Town and Johannesburg. So I found a lot of time to myself and thinking and writing and coming up with ideas. So when I was there, I had an idea of just starting a wine blog like you, like Chuani. I think that's the first time I saw you around, doing your wine tastings. And I wanted to be a voice online, stuff like that. But I just didn't have an idea of how I was going to package it. But what I found out, which was interesting, was that, okay, I realized my voice was still small, but it was big in terms of where I was coming from. And I'm talking of a Zimbabwean context. So I figured out, there's probably a big Zimbabwean community in South Africa, but no one is servicing it. No one is talking about wine in it, So I was coming up with this idea of, okay, I want to start this community. I talk about wine, I recommend wine to people, where to buy. But it seems like I was talking to myself. So I ask you guys to go and check out on Facebook. There's a page called Wine 263. If you get time, whenever you're going to see a page, Wine 263. I think I started it in 2014 when I was still in Durban with this idea. I even approached one of my friend, Greg Mutambe, like, let's do this stuff. So it kind of, I was talking to myself most of the time. So I was like, maybe this is not a good idea. Then I came to Cape Town. That was 2015. But I always wanted to empower myself and like really look for opportunities. And I'd go around internet and searching that. Then I came across the wine program at UCT, the Graduate School of Business, the wine business management. I think they'd done it a year before, and 2016 was the second class. And you know what? I just applied. It was 20 grand a module. You know, I couldn't go to my boss because I'd asked for another, so I had to raise like 20 grand for me to be put on that program. So yeah, my class was quite big, familiar faces. I remember I had Pearl and a few other guys in the industry in that class. And you know what question they gave us to do an assignment first was, okay, you're in Cape Town, you've got a community of like Portuguese community in Cape Town. You have to come up with a wine brand to service the Portuguese. So it was just like one of those aha moments. I was like, okay, but this is what I was thinking about, you know. So if you ask my guys at the class, because we were divided in groups, I took over that project like it was mine. I was like, guys. So I just took the blueprint I had there, then I put it on this wine program. And our class, you know, if you go into the program, you divide it into 2 classes, and our presentation 1, you know, because of the back of it. So post that, you do a post-modular assignment. So you're supposed to come up with a wine program or wine brand in your workplace to give you credits for the entire program. So I was like, look, this is what I'm doing. Look, my boss, this is what I'm doing. You know, I want to create a wine brand for all the restaurants, Potluck, Shop Market Club, and Test Kitchen. And, you know, it's one of those where I think if you have a good relationship with your boss and whatever, for some reason, Luke was like, Tinashe, I like the project, I understand you, but, you know, I think this will benefit you more. Can't you make it your own? And I was like, okay. I was even scared to ask you if I can come up with my own brand because of conflict of interest. Actually, I had an idea. So, you know, it gave me a green light, and I was like, okay, now I've got the permission. Now I can start it. Where am I going to get a wine? By then, I didn't even know what to call it. I was like, okay, what must I call it? I'm asking friends, and people like, you know, this and this. But I was quite fortunate, you know, things happened by chance. So at that time, I was reading a book by Jonathan Nozieta. If you guys are really into wine, I suppose you go look up for it. It's called Liquid Memory by Jonathan Nozieta. So there's a part where he talks about wine origin. And, you know, when we're studying wine, we know wine of origin is where the wine is coming from, be it Stellenbosch, be it Portugal, be it Spain. And one of the struggles I had in my early wine career was understanding what a wine of Stellenbosch tastes like, what a wine of New Zealand tastes like, what a wine from Germany. I had never been to those places, but, you know, the wine book is telling you, you must taste Germany, look at Germany, how it is like. But interestingly enough, there's a point when I was tasting wine, but I was picking up, you know, fruits and flavors I was so familiar with growing up. And I remember in my studying, I used to write, if I pick up a Merlot, I'm picking up the indigenous foods I grew up eating and enjoying. Then I'll say, okay, I picked this up. So this is a Merlot. I look at the European terms, I just plug in there. Okay, red currants, cherries. That's how I'll pass my blind tastings. Like all my blind tasting have been like, you know, credits, high credits. And that's the technique I use. So I would visualize the wine and smell it, and the wine would take me to a place I'm familiar with. So Jonathan in that particular paragraph says, I think your wine of origin can also be where the wine is taking you, you know, because you're familiar with the place. And wine is all about a sense of place. So if a wine is taking me to California, that it is where. If a wine is taking me back home, like the wine was doing, then it becomes your wine of origin. So I was like, okay, the wine is taking me home. What's home in Shona? It's called Kumusha. And everyone was like, oh, can't you use an English name? I was like, duh. I don't even know how to pronounce all those Afrikaner labels, let alone the Germans. It took me a while to even get Buchanan's Clove correct. So I was like, you know, people have their own pronunciation. So it became a thing. So Kumusha is your origins, your roots, you know, your home. So for me, wine was taking me back home. I was missing home. I was like, okay, what I'm going to put on the label, you know, it's quite difficult. But I was like, you know, you go to Stellenbosch, Mellast is putting their beautiful property on the label. You know, all these big chateaus in France put their property. And the only property that made sense for me was my grandfather's home, you know, Kumusha. So I just took an old photograph and had a friend of mine who was from the Eastern Cape. So I was just like, dude, this is what I want on the label. And it was quite interesting when I was giving him the brief, you know, the look on his face, like, oh, Tinashe, you're reminding me of the Eastern Cape, you know, that heart, you know, so some details, he ended up putting them there on himself. He's like, no, you're reminding me of this thing. We put grain, you know, with the chickens running over the label. So it made sense. But the reason I came up with it was, you know, I think wine gave me a voice. Wine gave me courage and you know, an expression. So for me, it's about expressing myself. I'm not really actually selling wine. I'm selling a new way of expressing my culture, expressing my love of wine. And I knew when someone was holding this bottle, it was going to have meaning beyond what's inside. So, you know, everywhere you go in Africa or any African home, there's a heart. I wanted people to like really connect deep inside with themselves before they even drink the wine. Then the story comes at the behind. Geez, I've never spoken about Kumusha wines this way before.
I love it. I'm like tearing up. I'm like, oh my God, I feel so emotional about it now. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
I've heard this story before.
It was a passion project where, so when I released the first bottle, it was like blue. I was so freaked out. I even went to look. I was like, look, geez, you know, this thing is actually causing me problems than fun, because now everyone was like, no, where can we get the bottle? And you in America, you say, Tinashe, can I get a bottle in America? I'm like, geez. So it becomes a complete nightmare where someone in Zim wants a bottle and I couldn't get them. I was like, geez, this is so frustrating now. But in essence, why I started it was I just wanted to express myself, to be honest. I wasn't thinking business or finances about it, but it was just a way of me expressing and channeling what I felt and channeling what I was enjoying, what I love. And it's given me ways to connect with people now, you know?
Nice. I think that's probably one of the most interesting things about you and wine, because it's like, you know, you approach it not just as a job or a product, you actually approach it as a way to connect with people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I love that about you. Gosh, any questions about Kumusha? Kumusha. How do we say it? Say it one more time for me. Kumusha.
Kumusha.
I said it right, Kumusha.
Yeah.
Yes, Kumusha. Any questions? Let's see. Carol. Hey, Carol.
Hi, Twani. Hi, Tinashe. Very nice to see you again. And it's
Thank you,
so good
Carol.
to hear
Good
all
to
the
see you,
names. Thanks. And the names from the one and only. I know Luva and Pearl well, and my son works there too. So
oh, awesome. Amazing place.
Yeah,
I have great
it
memories
is.
of
It's
the place.
stunning.
Yeah.
Really stunning. I have two questions for you. Firstly, where do you source your grapes from? And secondly, which are the dominant varietals that you use?
Okay, so where I sourced my grapes, it was actually a funny story. So when I came to the test kitchen, that was 2015, you know, like I always say, I was cleaning up wines, trying to figure out which are selling. Then I just came across this bottle. It was the Obstal Caleverson. I hadn't heard about it before. I hadn't tasted it before. I opened this one. I was like, damn, this is one of the best wines. And, you know, and I put it on a wine tasting menu. So I was so curious about it and reading about it. It was coming from the Slanghoek. I'd never been to the Slanghoek. I didn't know where it was. I actually made a trip and drove there by myself and walked up to Obstal. I met this amazing guy, Ati, who was even surprised. A guy from the test kitchen is just showing up in that no, it's very quiet. It's a beautiful valley. I was like, no, geez, I tasted your wine. I like it. What else do you have? And we were tasting quite a lot through his Baba Semio and some of his Oxter blends. So when I wanted to make a wine, it's all about influencing and what you're drinking at that time. So that time, that's where, I was so fascinated about Chris's wine, Chris Arlight, the Catology, which was a Semio and Chenin. I was like, geez, I would love to make a blend like that. Who's got this similar wine? So I was, Ati, I know you've got the Calevas and Chenin. Can you give me a bit of that? And I know you've got the Baba Semio. Can you give me a bit of that? It's like, no, I'll hook you up. So my first vintage, the 2016 white, was Chenin Blanc and Semio, almost equal parts. All fruits were from the Slanghoek. It was, it was an emotional wine where I was just blending because it's what I got. But eventually you get a connect. So what I do is I just want to make it clear. I'm not a winemaker at all. At the moment, I don't aspire to be a winemaker. But what I found out I was good at was tasting and blending wines. And, you can ask any winemaker of people in wine. That's the most important part in the winemaking process. So I can come up with blocks. No, I need this barrel. I need 20% of that. I need to add this one. It's going to give me acidity. That's what I'm good at. So I trust the winemakers. They spend their whole life there. They're farmers. I call them farmers. So I can't be a winemaker if I'm not spending 90% of my time at the farm in barrels. I just don't think it's honest enough to call yourself a winemaker. So I just want to clear that I'm not a winemaker at all. I own a wine blend, and I'm good at, you can call me a wine blender maybe. So I was so in love with it. So my next vintage, which is in the current bottle, the 2017 white, was, at some point, again, I would just keep on reference Luke with the relationship I have with him. I was like, okay, now it's doing well, but it's gotta work with food. And the most important reason, if you can't sell it anyway, it gotta work at the test kitchen. So that's why I put my food component in it. So I designed it with, how is it going to work in the test kitchen? Is it a wine which will work with most of the dishes there? And there's certain varietals and styles of wines I'd come to accustomed to be at the restaurant, which I know works with food and which doesn't work with food. So I love the 2017 blend because I honestly don't think I'll make anything better than that. I hope I can make something to surpass it. But it's a combination of Chenin Blanc, there's a bit of Semio, Roussanne, and a touch of Viognier. So it's quite delicate, quite pristine, and old vineyards and young vineyards. And, it's so pure and very food friendly. On the red side, I just didn't, obviously the pressure, I started off with a white and I needed to make a red because everyone was asking for a red wine. So I wanted something which was going to be easily accessible. So at that time, I was so fascinated with Adam Mason's wine. So Adam was making the Cape Cinsault. And at that time, only Jocelyn at Hogan Wines was also making a similar style. I was like, I'm loving Cinsault because it works in the restaurant, but I love a bit of Cab. So I'm going to also make a Cape Cinsault. And Artie had the same varieties as well, which was easy access. So the first 2017 Kumusha Red is 50% Cinsault, 50% Cabernet Sauvignon. I wasn't looking for something overboard, something fleshy or fruity. I was just looking for something you could drink and enjoy, something which stoked a bit of curiosity. You could sip and think about it, but not over the top anyway. Then 2018, I realized maybe, the problem, that's why I don't like drinking my wine a lot afterwards, because you keep doubting yourself. I don't know if it happens to other winemakers. Once you bottle the wine, and you keep on tasting, you'd have doubts about it. Geez, I should have added a bit more of this. I should have added less of this. So 2018, it's still Cabernet and Cinsault, but I added a bit of Carignan, just to get a bit of, so it doesn't mention on the bottle, but there is Carignan. And I'm not the only one who adds stuff and don't mention it. I think probably 90% of the wineries, they do it. But yeah, the 18 blend in the bottle now is a bit of, is Cab, Cinsault, and the touch of Carignan, all from the Slanghoek as well. So Slanghoek is north of Cape Town, I think so, past the tunnel in the Breda River Valley. beautiful valley to visit if you guys haven't been there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Those are incredible varieties. I can imagine the white must be very floral and aromatic, and as you say, food friendly. And Cinsault and Carignan are phenomenal. Thank you so much.
Yeah, pleasure. Sure.
Question about your wines though. So there's wines that I've tasted, like that very first one. And I went back and I'm like, hey, T, can I get some more? Can I buy some more? And you're like, oh no, it's gone. There's no more. You sold out. Yeah. So you kind of pick these blends every year, and then you don't make the same blend the next year. Is that how it works? And so like if we have it, we should buy it and save it, or
I think for me, that's the beauty about like independent wine label like my one. So I'm not tied to own land. I'm not tied to a vineyard where I just have Cinsault or Shannon. But now, because of availability and the relationship, I just feel confident in working with Ati because there's room to experiment and play. But now, because of my stature, I'm getting like offers to play around with different fruits from different everywhere. So that's where I'm gonna go. But I think, you know, it's still self-discovery at the moment. You know, you can't. I have a feeling of you know, it becomes difficult. Like someone wants to getting one wine brand. I suppose other people are just asking, how do you do it? Is it easy? It's quite easy, but I'll be honest and say the most difficult part is selling the wine.
Yeah.
And selling the wine, I just don't mean selling one bottle, but having someone to buy a second one and a third one. And you know, you're quite easy to be clouded with feelings and hoping that you can just put a wine in a bottle and everyone's just gonna buy it because it's Tinashe. Well, I'll be the first one to tell you that it doesn't happen that way in the wine world, you know. So you gotta build trust, you gotta be authentic, you gotta build the network, the distribution, and most importantly, you gotta put up good wine and delicious wine. And you know, so for me, I'm quite flexible in that I've put out stuff which I think is great and stuff which I like, but I gotta listen to people what they enjoy, and maybe make it much more accessible to them, because I cannot listen to them and just be like, okay, I'm gonna make a wine I like, and you know, it's not gonna be liked by everyone. So I think it's still a discovery. The white blend, I'm pretty certain that's always gonna be my taste, my style, because I love white blends and I love that. That's gonna stay. I'm gonna change it a bit. But in terms of red is quite fickle. I've got my favorites, which in actual fact are not everyone's favorite, you know. So, but hopefully one day I'll have a red wine. I'll say, okay, this is my taste, and people buying it are the same ones with my same similar taste as well. But I'd love to create, you know, maybe stuff that I don't personally enjoy, but put out stuff that people can actually enjoy. So, you know, I've worked with another farm and we created the wine, you know, it's just playing around. But in the end, you don't want to have many on the line. But I think I would rather have one which is more personal to me, which is a reflection of my personality, my taste, and I'll just play around with whatever I get in different years, what's interesting.
But I don't think we mind taking the journey with you. So like, just keep doing you. I think it's fun to taste the wine and to know that you put some personal like thought and emotion into making that wine.
Yeah.
That makes it better. There's so many wines out there to choose from, but like, why would we? What makes the difference? So I like taking the journey.
No, you know, the thing is, once you like, that's one thing I've trying to understand, that you're not gonna please anyone, but it's always natural, man. If I give someone a bottle of wine, you don't even need to lie to me that you're enjoying it. I can see the expression and be like, oh, geez, this one wanted a bit of flesh to it. But, you know, so it's always natural, like, you know, and most people, so that's why I always be like, guys, just be honest with me. You know, if you don't like the wine, it's not a train smell. There's a lot of wines I don't like, but it doesn't mean they're bad. But I think as a wine producer, wine brand owner, you always want everyone to enjoy your wine, which is not going to be the case.
We have a question from Tatu. So Tatu, I unmuted you. You can ask your question now.
Oh, hi, Tinashe.
Hello, Tatu.
Hi, I just want to know, where are you positioned in the consumer space and competitors, because the wine industry is so saturated, competitive, and also how do you add value in consumers' life, especially the millennial generation, because they're kind of like looking for the intangible. They like brands that they connect with them on a human level. So what kind of messaging are you communicating with them? That's like from the brand side.
Or from the brand side, I think for me, what was important was just to get it right in the onset, and me being honest that I'm not a winemaker, and you know, this is what made me do the brand. So in the end, you just want to be like, are you in a position where if this wine doesn't sell, you can drink it by yourself and still enjoy? You know, so that's how I look at it. And the rest is just like Chwani said, for me, wine hasn't become a business or a job. It's just become a lifestyle. You know, wherever I'm around, it's either I'm drinking wine, I'm talking about wine. So I'm trying not to attach the Kumusha brand to my personality, but you know, it's the only way I can attach it. I don't own any vineyard, I don't own anything. So people gotta have to relate to it in some way. But for me, the message has been, you know, be free, you know, let the wine take you where it's taking you. Just be open-minded. Don't be limited about the terminology or whatever. You know, for me, Kumusha is all about that stuff which you think is can be put on the wine table, or you're not allowed to say it, but in your own space, just be free and wild to say it. Be free and wild to feel like, oh, I'm picking up this certain soil in this wine. So for me, that's the message I want to drive. And basically, so it's either you resonate with it or you don't resonate with it. But the only advantage I have is like, you know, because the nature of my job, I'm more into mainstream. People understand that I'm giving them what is, you know, what is really truly authentic, and the quality is high. The rest is just being you and being me.
Nice.
I don't know if I answered correctly.
Is that good, Tatu? Do you have any more questions?
Oh, yeah. No, I was just saying that the brand story is kind of like what's connect with consumers, and it's going to actually make it stay relevant and evolve with them. So well done on that.
Yeah, and another thing, I'll have to be honest and say, you know, in South Africa, there's a lot of good wines. I think the question of wine quality has long been answered. Everyone is making absolutely fantastic wine. You can grab even the ones which used to make mass market have improved their quality. So it's not a question of wine quality, but it's a question of what style you like and which sector you resonate with, and how do you connect your brand with your consumer. And that's what matters. It's all about relationship at the moment, and who do you trust, whose opinion do you trust, whose style you like. It's before you could just say, okay, I'm making better wine, but I can tell you, man, there's a whole lot of good wines, and a lot of them. So you gotta be you, and hopefully you get people to understand your taste and your vision.
Yeah, I do like how authentic how you bring all of your authenticity into the brand. So for example, some people might say, like, I'm sure when you say, I'm gonna roll out this wine brand and I want a picture of my grandfather's home in Zimbabwe to be on the label, and I want to give it this Zimbabwean name. There's some people who probably say, no, don't do that. You have to be very like vanilla, very cookie cutter. Yeah. But I think that's the difference between, that's what's trending in wine right now. It's like, no, nobody wants vanilla. Nobody wants to drink French Bordeaux just because it's a French Bordeaux, right? People want to drink the story. And so I love the fact that you kept it authentic with like your Zim culture. And
to think of it, you know, it wasn't, you know, obviously when you're starting something, you ask around, and, you know, you get people with different opinions. why are you not putting the name in English, and why are you not making it broader? What if a closer person picks it up, and then what if a South African wants to drink? But at the end of the day, I think, you know, wine is about a community. Wine is about culture, and it's gotta be standing on something, you know. It's either you're standing on something or standing on nothing. So it doesn't matter where you're from, where you're at, but you gotta be standing on something. And the smallest community you can get is how you grow big. So for me, I look it from starting small and growing big. So you can't start and just start aiming at everyone else, because they don't understand you. So you gotta understand the community you're with first, and if they understand you, then they'll build up on that. So if you don't have anything you're standing on, then no one will understand you, you know. So build it in your community and let it grow from there.
Very cool. Any more questions? Don't be shy. I can unmute you, or you can type your question in the comments. Nope. All right, so I have another question, and then we'll let you go, Tinashe. I just wanted you to talk, you talked a little bit about like your tasting technique. Is there any advice that you can give us, any more advice you can give us on how to actually do deductive tastings, how to taste wines? Because you were a member of the Zimbabwean wine tasting team that went to France for the international competition.
2 times. 2 times.
2 times, yes, 2 times. So can you talk to us about like some, because some of us struggle. I know I do, and I know what my problem is, but some of us struggle.
Maybe I'll give a bit of context about that wine tasting championship. So, you know, Jean-Vincent had been running the wine tasting championships for the South African team. So what used to happen is, for the South African team, there's always one person you cannot be from South Africa, but if you're working in South Africa, you're allowed to go on the team. So it happens, even if I'm from Zim and there's a South African, they just gotta be working in South Africa, in Zim for 3 years. So all these years, all of us were going in just to compete for one spot at the South African team. And I know Joseph was the first one who got on the South African team. I think it was 2015. And it also gave us, like, you know, a cup of motivation until in 2017 now, we all went. And interestingly enough, there were, I think it was like 4 of us in the top 10, like the whole country now. So it was 4 of us in the top 10 in Zimbabwe, like, but we pretty much good. Now we all 4 of us good tasters wanting to fight for one position on the South African team. Then just by chance, we just went to Jean-Vincent, but like, can't we create our own tasting team? I was like, no, actually we can do that. So, you know, we'll send out the papers and all. That's how the Zim tasting team came about. So it was me, Tongai of Mosi Wines, it was Pardon, who's now in Netherlands, and it was Malvin, who works at the Cape Grace. You know, we sourced for funds, and boom, we're there. But for us, it was like an eye-opener. We were so excited, and we're tasting wines with, you know, we were just all over the place. And we actually didn't do well enough. We came out 25 out of 26. But then when we came back, we realized all our tasting was wrong, because, you know, we're trying to pick up these apricots and vanilla, which didn't come second nature to us. So we started, you know, coming up with our own vocabulary now. What I was saying about, you know, wine is, you know, what people have to understand, especially in tasting, is all these elements are something you're familiar with. So if you're not familiar with an apple or grapefruit, you're not gonna pick it in. But most people everyone grew up eating a banana. You know what a banana tastes like. So if it comes to you, you're easily picking it up. So we devised all the fruits in Zim, all the, you know, cow dung, you know, everything we could think of. Okra, then we came up with a list. Okay, Tongai, what did you pick up in this wine? And Tongai is like, no, I pick up cow dung in this Mourvedre, I pick up those white peppers and stuff. So we almost came with a list, and we just take what we used to. And if someone comes up with okra, then we know it's a Cabernet Franc. If someone smells chili, we know it's a Cabernet from Chile. So you come up with your own vocabulary, which is not what is in the books. But if you're writing an exam, obviously they want you to write blackberry and blackcurrant on a Cabernet Sauvignon. But if you're in a blind tasting and when you smell an apple, to you it means it's a Cabernet Sauvignon. So all of a sudden you've tried, okay, I smell apple, this is a Cabernet Sauvignon. All right, Cabernet Sauvignon, in the books they say it's gotta be blackcurrants, blackberry, that's how I pass my tasting exams. And I'm being honest, all my tasting exams have been distinctions. You can go and ask Kathy Matheson. She says I'm the second best result in the history of WSET third level.
Nice. Because
of and it's the same technique I used, referencing to what I know, then going on the notes, okay, this is what I put. So yeah, we used that technique. And when we went back again, we came 14th out of 26, which was very impressive. Yeah. So I think
very impressive.
And it's sometimes it's especially or exam tasting is in a different way. Then tasting is in different levels. Some of it is like to taste quality when you're judging in competitions, where there's certain qualities you just have to realize. And most people taste looking for the aromas and pineapple, which is not important. Come to think of it, when you drink it or wine, the way you decide if you not like it or not is how sweet it is, how dry it is, how long it stays on the palate. You're not even choosing a wine because it smells like strawberry. And I don't know why people are so fascinated about finding strawberry or fruits in a wine, whereas they should be looking at texture of the wine, acidity in the wine, how long it's staying on the palate, those kind of undebatable things. How sweet is the wine? How dry is the wine? That's how you're building your tasting knowledge to sit on, wine judging panels.
That's some of the best advice that I've heard, like, forever. Like, that's because I've really been just focusing so much on, like, the fruit, and I think it's distracting when people focus so much on, like, the fruit and those different aromas. But the acidity is key, the tannins, how long it lasts in your mouth. Those are all super.
The weight on the mouth, is it rich? Is it, you start building from there, that your tasting becomes structured. How balanced is the wine? Is the acidity looking out? So for me, that's what I smell. I'm not good at picking fruits, to be honest. I'll be the very first one to let you know. I still struggle at this end to pick up the actual fruits, but I'm very good at palate weight, at texture, at length, at acidity. How do I get that? And to be honest, that's why we drink wine. We're not drinking wine because it smells of lychee or it smells of grapefruit or those kind of stuff. You just throw in them. You see if a wine is colorless and it's a white wine, geez, it's gonna be lemon, green apple. Anyone can say that, but you can't really run away from the palate. You know what I mean? So if people can concentrate on the palate, weight, length, texture, whatever the palate is, the palate doesn't lie to you. If you can master that, like, you drink a wine, why is it tasting like this? You kind of figure it out. Okay, maybe they put stocks in it because it's tasting a bit bitter, or why is it so weighty? Why is it so sweet? Then you build it up from there, especially if you're gonna be sitting on these wine tasting panels and wine judging panels, or if you're gonna want to blend your own wine. Just think beyond the fruit aspect. It's just, even in exams, I think in wine tasting exams, the fruit part is only like 3 marks, isn't it?
Very cool. I'm going to go redesign my entire tasting class now based on this conversation. Thank you so much. Any more questions before we let Tinashe go? Silas, I'll unmute you. There you go. Wait.
All right. Tinashe, back to you again.
Yeah.
You're a guy we look up to, and we learn a lot. We're learning a lot as well. So I'd like to ask you how you were able to balance up your time. I know this is a question that you were asked, so many times out there. But again, balancing your time is something that is really key. Bearing in mind that you have a day job that you have to keep,
yeah,
but at the same time, a brand that you have to develop, and just encourage us on how best we can be able to go around that.
Oh yeah, that took a long, like it took a long changing my lifestyle and changing my interest and taste. It just became at a time where I wasn't going out that much, so I was sleeping home early, straight from work. I read and sleep, so I cut out that lifestyle. I was more interested in just chilling at home and cooking, hosting friends. So that was one bit of it, and I was fortunate that at the test kitchen, with the relationship and the nature of the restaurant, it was a bit flexible in a way where I had so much time to taste and, to balance. And again, what I said earlier, if you got your wine program designed and you know what you want in it, you just don't take any tasting, for instance. You just don't spend much more time listening to everyone who comes at the door. You're so particular because there's certain stuff you want and you don't want. So it creates a bit more time for you. And yeah, man, in nature, I've always been a busy person. I just love doing stuff all the time. I'm restless. I struggle to sleep, which annoys my girlfriend. So I just love to utilize every time I am. And my lifestyle, I was fortunate to incorporate everything in my lifestyle. Like everything I did was, if I'm there, I have to, it's a reason why I'm there. So it's just not I'm showing up for any apparent reason. And, you just mentioned work and wine brand. I've got a daughter as well, very energetic, that I have to share time with as well. So it's just, taking away the unnecessary stuff and knowing your visions and goals and prioritizing.
Nice. We had a question in the chat, and it was from Don. Don wanted to know, how do you best pick up acidity in wine?
Whoa, I see. Whenever you taste a wine and the amount of saliva coming out your mouth, it's a very good sign. So the more acid the wine, the more your mouth will water. That's the easiest way. But some acid are so obvious, like, Sancerre acid, it slits your tongue straight away, like, razor sharp. You can feel that. So I think if it's piercing, it's high acidity, but if it's watering your mouth very much, then obviously it's high acidity. Then obviously, if you're going through tasting with Kathy Matson at WSET, you do the drip test where you swallow the wine and the quicker it drips, the more acid it is. So that's another good way, if you're being more technical about it.
Any more questions? No? All right. Well, thank you so much.
Jenda has a question, I think.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you. There you go.
Yeah, I just want to... Yeah, no, it's fine. It's not just a big question, but I just want to curious to know, my brother just asked you now how you balance. And I also want to ask about how big is the production now, Kumusha? I think it's now well received, local and international. Are you producing?
Yeah, I'm still, like I said, I was only doing with Obstore wines, and my total production with both white and red were like 6,000 bottles. Then, I tried a project which I did because I had Vic Falls, and I worked with another farm, Le Monde. Yeah, we produced quite a lot of wines there, but I figured it out, because the more I had, the more stressful it was. So I streamlined again. So I'm just sticking to Obstore for now. And the next vintage has slightly more reds, I think close to like 5,000 bottles of red and just under 2,000 bottles of white. And yeah, I'm working on another, more affordable range as well. But I'm not sure about the figures with what's happening now. So it's still manageable, but yeah. I'm still got a day job, so I have to manage it as well.
Yeah, that's great, brother. You're so inspiration.
Thank you, my brother.
If people wanted to buy, Aang has a question. Ready, second?
Yeah, this is so fascinating. I really admire your energy and all the different things you're doing. I just have a question. I don't know if I missed it because I've been really distracted by crazy enough stuff that's going on in my house. But I'm just wondering what kind of budget you need to start with to make a wine, like your own brand or something. What do you start with? Like.
Yeah. So thank you for asking that. It's a quite familiar question I get asked nowadays. For me, I started with zero budget, actually, to be honest. And
wow.
I remember even my boss was like, Tinashe, do you need capital to start with? I was like, you know what? And at that time, like, it was all about relationships for me. You know, I went to Ati. Ati says, okay, Tinashe, I've got the wine, but don't worry, you pay me after you sell the stuff. So I had that kind of flexibility, maybe because I was lucky because of the relationship I had created. And everywhere I went, everyone was willing to help me. I remember my first production of the red and the white. I got Amorim to give me ND Tech corks, which are the most expensive corks on the market. Wow. It's like, no, Tinashe, just we're so fascinated about it. But I think in holistics, taking relationships aside, you know, it's not much expensive to start a wine brand, wine production, you know. The only challenging part is the distribution part and the selling it, you know. That's the difficult part. So I can say you can start to minimum bottles you want to do with a farm if you're approaching them. It's like, you know, they'll listen to you if you're going for at least 600 or more barrels, which you can get from a barrel. So you can't go there wanting 100 bottles, doesn't make sense. But, you know, they'll listen to you if you're having at least 1,000, 1,200. It becomes more economical for you. But I'll just have to be honest, getting and sourcing the wine is the least of your worry. It's the least of your budget. Probably, I wish I had more money to put in the marketing budget than the sourcing budget.
Wow, thank you.
Wow,
thanks.
That's very interesting. Speaking, Silas, yes, go ahead.
Tinashe, please don't mind my many questions. You know, we're in the industry, so we have to learn from you.
That's why I'm here.
I want to take you back to Test Kitchen, and you know, the success of Test Kitchen is something that we all know. And I want you to let me know, where did you find Test Kitchen when you entered there? Did to transform it to the, you know, greater height that it is currently? Like the 5 things you did, or rather some of the most important things that you had to put as priorities to make sure that you achieve whatever it is that you wanted to achieve, the kind of success that you have now. Thank you.
All right. Yes, you guys are giving me good questions. So Test Kitchen came about. So during my time at the One and Only, I was based. The later part of my time at the One and Only, I was based in Nobu, and you know, even Luke Dale Roberts used to, even up to now, or not now, but he goes there probably twice a month. It's one of his favorite restaurants and one of his favorite foods. So I used to meet him up. He comes up with his wife and his son, Finley. We'll chat, recommend wine. Then when I went to Durban, I think I was just a year and a few months in Durban. Wave was working at the Test Kitchen, had left. And because of mutual friends we had, the Manleys then, Ian and Lisa Manley Communications. So they were doing PR for One and Only. They were doing PR for Luke Dale Roberts. And, you know, I'd remain in touch with them. Then be like, Tinashe, you know, there's an opening at the Test Kitchen. And it wasn't in my mind then, but I was like, really? Okay. I'll just send the CV, whatever happens. I was happy at the Oyster Box. I was like a month and a year and a few months there. I didn't expect them to get back to me. Then Luke was like, no, bring him. We want to do the trial. So, you know, at that place, I was a bit hesitant. because obviously it was daunting. You know, test kitchen at that time was the number 28 in the world. And I was like, you know, as a sommelier, and I have to be honest, you know, or in the wine industry, it's one thing you gotta be honest to yourself and be like, okay, I'm at this position, but am I really comfortable in what I'm doing now? Do you think I'm the best at what I'm doing? Do you think I'm capable of doing more? When I left the one and only, I felt I needed more. But when I was at the oyster box, I was like, okay, I'm comfortable. I need to build up on this. But then test kitchen came, it gave me doubts. I was like, I don't think I'm ready for the spotlight. But, you know, it's just sometimes you're just there at the right time, right moment, and you just make those decisions. And I remember when I took it up, I went there. Luke wasn't even, I think Luke wasn't available when I was doing the trials. And the guys who were there really liked me. I was like, no, geez, we need to take this guy. Then they say, okay, we're giving you the job. But obviously I'm working for a hotel. I'm going to an independent restaurant, and, you know, finances, they don't have the financial power of the big hotel groups. And when the oyster box guys heard that I was leaving, I remember Kevin Josephs, the one of the executive chef, was like, you know, bring the offer, we're just gonna double it and triple it. But I think that's one of the toughest decision and honest decision I've ever made in my life. I was like, at that moment, I was so fascinated about the potential and what the test kitchen would do to me, you know, putting the finances in play. And, you know, it wasn't the best financial decision, I have to tell you, like straight away. I had to to take like a massive, but for me, it just, something about it just made sense. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go there. What's the worst that can happen? I was from Cape Town. I'll just find means to survive. But I wanted the growth and the job that, you know, I was like willing to say, Kevin, you know what, this decision is not financial at all. I want the opportunity to work with the best. You know, you can't be the best if you're not working with the best. You know what I mean? So yeah, I just went to the test kitchen. I went there. The first few weeks were horrible, man. I just don't wish them upon anyone. Because like I'm telling you, I wasn't in an environment where I was responsible for everything, you know. Water is out, everyone is looking at me. I don't even know where to order it, and, you know, so, and there wasn't a proper handover in a say. So the first weeks were challenging, self-doubt. I even remember going to Luke in the first week. I'm like, you know what, I don't think I'm the right person for this place, because I was just drowning. You know, you have to get wine in, and Luke is like, you know, you need a pairing for this dish. And test kitchen is an environment where Luke just comes up with a dish. Next minute is changing the thing. And, you know, I couldn't keep up pace. And I went to him, I was like, you know, look, I don't think I'm the best person for this. Like, you know what, Tinashe, just take your time. And, you know, I was a new person at the test kitchen. And you can imagine the sales rep and the wine farms. I used to come up at the restaurant and I've got 10 people waiting for me in the interview, you know, and I still got to do the pairing. So it was a tough time, but I give credit to Luke, and I always, you know, he's always going to be an integral part of what I did at the test kitchen, because he had faith in me. He took me as a rookie, and he understood that, but he saw the potential, and he said, you know, Tinashe, I just like your ambition. Just relax. We'll get the guys to help you settle in, you know, get in the kitchen. We do tastings and you know, and one other thing also, I before I went to the test kitchen, I thought I knew food and understand food. But once you're there, you'll be like, wow, you know. So I learned food and to understand textures about food and how to play it, how to come up with dishes. It was all at the test kitchen. I wouldn't have learned that anywhere else, because I was so immersed in it. So I think the top attributes that made me survive at the test kitchen was my boss obviously was very supportive and understood my ambition. And I have to be the first one to tell you, Luke never at one point told me to get this wine on the list. He actually has to ask me like, oh, I was talking to you. Do you mind if we can take this wine? I'll be like, yes, no, you know. So it was a good thing, and I didn't abuse it. I embraced it and learned quite a lot from him as well. And the second thing was working with the staff, getting an understanding. You know, it's a new regime. getting them to understand my program, it took a while. And I always give one example where I won the stuff over. So, you know, we're doing this wine pairings, and that time I tasted this wine from Craig Hawkins, Testalonga. Geez, I don't know if we still have time, Joanne. Am I going overboard?
No, you're fine. You're fine. We have until we usually stop at 2:00, but we usually use the second hour to do like a study group. So I don't have anything prepared for study group, so this is perfect.
So you know, I was still new to this food and wine pairing, and you know, I have to be like very real here. You know, working in hotels and restaurants, and the way I'd done food and wine pairings in a different way was totally different in the test kitchen. And I think with Luke, we coined the term like thought-provoking dishes. And I think what Luke liked about me was we had different tastes. So we could never agree on a wine pairing. Like me and him were opposites, but somehow you'd be like, okay, go with this. I tried. I say, okay, chef, I'm gonna try your option. We'll see how the guests interpret it, and I'll be back to him like, you know, my combination is winning. So it became a point where he was, you know, he didn't even have to ask his opinion. It's like, okay, do what you want. And so there was one pairing. So I had difficulty in winning the stuff over because I was, you know, I came with this radical, out of the box wine pairing, doing my own stuff. And I remember I tasted the Testalonga, the El Bandito, that orange style wine, just randomly. So when a dish came up, I remember it was a king clip with capers and, you know, bent carrot. It was quite an interesting dish. And for me, when I tasted the dish, it reminded me of the wine. But the wine in itself, you know, is those orange wine is not your typical wine. For me, it made sense. I put that pairing on. Looked in, every guest is either they complained or they like it, and it became a point where there were more people not enjoying it than liking it, and it got to the waiters, and we were like starting to question this guy. Geez, who's this guy? You know, his guests are not liking it, and you know they start talking behind your back. And my fellow managers also starting to doubt, until one of the managers was bold enough to go and look and say, look, we're having this problem with this dish on the floor. I don't know, you know. And Luke was like, okay, I'm making the dish. Tinashe, can you come with the wine pairings? You know, it's like, geez, I'm in trouble. So, you know, we tasted the dish, and, you know, the expression tells us. For me, wine pairing is about expression. You can't lie, man. I spend much of my time watching guests eating and dining, and when they taste the wine in the dish, and they'll be like, wow, this. So that's, for me, that was the most integral part. So to get that wow factor, you can't just read a menu and be like, oh, okay, this and this, I'm gonna put that wine. You gotta have like to taste rigorously with different styles. So for me, at the test kitchen, a dish comes, Luke says, I'm thinking of this wine and wine and wine. Just think about what you can bring down. I bring 6 bottles, we open, we taste, you know, 6 bottles with one dish, and always pick up that wow factor wine, that wow experience wine. That's something I brought to the test kitchen, if you want to ask why. And it only came after that incident where Luke was, wow, geez, this is something interesting. This is thought-provoking. I've never tasted something like this before. And he called all the staff. He's like, guys, I understand this is what's happening, but you have to explain to your guests that this is the wine, this, to enjoy this experience. You're not drinking the wine alone, but you're having it as a combination. And from then on, you know, I gained trust from my waiters, and they were like, wow. And everyone from then on was selling it and explaining it to the guests. And probably up to date is one of the best wine pairings I've ever done in the test kitchen. And it changed my working there. It changed the whole relationship. Just that one dish and one pairing, I was doubting myself, but which, you know, even if you ask any waiter at the test kitchen, they'll tell you that wine pairing is the best thought-provoking wines they've ever tasted. So I've modeled my wine tasting pairings. If you've dined, Joanne, you've dined there before. And, you know, for me, another thing at the test kitchen was, because it was so highly acclaimed in terms of food, no one was talking about it in terms of wine. You know, the wine program came at the second. And for me, initially when I was doing the wines, I couldn't understand why people were leaving and they're not talking about my pairings. So I had to make them so thought-provoking that it's either they liked it or not. So the person's leaving the restaurant, some will be like, no, this is the shittest pairing we've ever had. But me and Luke will be like, you know what, you're not gonna win them over. As long as you understand it and we know what we're putting on the plate, that's what matters. And in the end, that's what's made it so fabulous. And that's why at some point I was also one of the, the Eat Out Wine Service Award came because of those honest wine pairings. And the other thing was what? Just the relationships and me being vocal. It's not easy to keep up on these social streets, because you're gonna get criticism, you're gonna get, people have their own opinions, but it's just like who you are, truth yourself. And I like communicating. I like sharing wines and just posting stuff and eating out. And
so there's one more thing.
What you see is what you get.
There's one more thing, and I love your social media page. It always makes me very hungry, and it always makes me feel like an underachiever when I'm in the kitchen. Whenever I see the way you plate things, I'm like, oh my gosh!
It's all about learning. It's all about learning. Like I said, if you ever come at the test kitchen, so my wine station was designed because test kitchen is very small space. So my wine station for service is just in direct. And I'll have to be honest. Like I think. Maybe 40% of my service time has been looking in the kitchen what they're doing, and most of the time I had the sommelier there and I had the guy at the grill, and the chefs know me. I ask like every small question: why are you putting this in there? Why are you putting this in there? So for me it was like trying to emulate what they do in the restaurant and trying and copying it at home and be like the fancy chef, but most of the time is like replicating stuff I'm seeing at the test kitchen. And it taught me a certain way to appreciate food, man. It's like, some dishes in the test kitchen, one ingredient can take 3 days, but the amount of effort they put in that dish, like, really amazes me. So that's why even my cooking style now, it's long cooking. I enjoy cooking with friends the whole day. Every friends of mine, they've adjusted that they can't come hungry and expect to get food there, So it's all about, I think one thing the test kitchen and cooking taught me is patience. Nice. Patience about food. Those guys are really patient. Test kitchen chefs get in the restaurant at 9 a.m. in the morning. They leave at 11 p.m. or 12 p.m. at night. They're a whole day in the kitchen.
All day. So you talked about how small the test kitchen is and how small your service area is for wine. Is that why, was it your invention or was it somebody else's? One of my favorite things, the beverage cart. So the beverage cart with the brandy and all the spirits on it. Like, did you invent that because of the small space, or was that already there when you got there? And can you talk about the beverage cart?
Yeah. So for me, it was like I said, you have to identify yourself with a different beverage program. So for me, the test kitchen was like, I'm limited. I have to sell South African wine because the first question every guest at the test kitchen comes and asks you, are all wines on the pairing South African? Yes. So, so I wanted to make it as South African feel as possible and exciting and interesting. I wanted to incorporate every aspect of beverage. And, the cut was part of my thing. Well, I wanted to showcase brandy, because at that time I was involved in the Brandy Foundation, still involved, and I loved brandy in a way, but I wanted to showcase in the restaurant. And Luke was like, "Oh, nice, we have a cut. Why not display your brandies there?" So Luke is the kind of guy who is successful because sometimes he just talks an idea in your head, then it's just up to me to finish it. So he's not a guy who gives you the whole blueprint. You can come and say, "Oh, I'm thinking about it." And you question yourself, "Oh, geez, I can do this. Let me model this." Or I'm thinking about a cocktail like this. Like, why don't we offer cocktails in the dark room? And I'll have to put it on fact, like at the test kitchen, I'll safely say it's the only wine program in the country where you're having cocktails as you come in. You have a welcome MCC, which I change regularly to promote, and each and every wine MCC that I come across, a wine pairing where you're tasting more than 16 different wines. we finish with a brandy, truly South African. I'll challenge anyone to name me a wine program, which is giving every guest coming in that experience every day.
I mean,
and that's part of the legacy I wanted to leave at the test kitchen.
Absolutely love that. I mean, and I love the beverage cart. It just reminds me of, I love the cocktail. So like before you even have the dining experience, you're in the dark room and you're having these, and there's not a lot to choose from. It's not like you go and you have like a million cocktails to choose from. There's just very well thought out, delicious cocktails. And then after dinner, this beverage cart, I mean, I guess it happens before dinner too, but that beverage cart, when it comes around, I'm from the States. And so we have these things called ice cream trucks that come down the street and, you know, you can buy ice cream. And the beverage cart reminds me of the ice cream truck. It's just so exciting.
Yeah, it's become furniture there. And I've opened and cracked a lot of interesting brandies there. And, you know, so it's just exposing most of it at the test kitchen. I've enjoyed my time there, to be honest. It's like
nice. Well, speaking of brandy, next week in our study group, we're actually going to have Christelle here from the Brandy Foundation, and we're going to take an intro to brandy class. So I'm super excited about that. That's our next study session.
Awesome.
Yes. Any more questions for Tinashe? No? Are you guys sure? I'm just gonna unmute everyone, and if you have any last minute questions or any last minute comments, please go ahead and do that right now. Monica, go ahead.
So you mentioned your social media. Can you share with us your social media and where you're most active?
Geez, I'm most active on Instagram and Twitter. So Instagram is just Tinashe, my surname. I'll pop around there. Twitter is the same. Facebook is the same as well. Yeah, those are the three I'm just mostly active on.
So Instagram, you can see him cooking and you can see him hanging out with the starter. I forgot, I was gonna ask you this too.
And Kumusha Wines is the wine page that I just share pictures people send to me enjoying my wine and they just post it there, which is a cool way of like, it's just natural, nothing edited.
Nice, a good way to market it too. If people wanted to buy Kumusha brand wines, where can they buy them? Do you have a website dedicated to that? Do they inbox you, or how can they get a hold of them? And if we have some people that are in like France right now on the call. We have some people that are in America that call in. So where can you buy?
Well, in SA it's quite easy because you just go, if you go to my handles, like there's a link for my online shop, which I'm still using Opstar ones, but you can order from them and get it anywhere in South Africa. In retail stores, you can get it at Open Wine, at the Biscuit Mill, or the one in Wales Street. You can get it at Norman Goodfellows. You can get it at Wine Concepts. But you can show me a DM me. If you're close by, I can deliver for myself. Internationally, it's available through African Wines in The Hague. So if you in the Schengen countries, they can deliver to you easily. If you're in Germany, Belgium, Netherlands, of course. Not yet in the US.
We're working on that.
Or the UK. Yeah, we're working on that. Yeah, so I wish it's accessible to everyone in the end. That's my wish, but it takes longer. It takes quite a lot of effort to put in. At least now it's available in Zimbabwe and Harare, so it's easily available. But in SA, man, just drop me a message anywhere. I can organize the wines for you.
Nice. Any more questions?
And share, and it's important to share because your word of mouth is my oxygen, you know?
Yes, it's his marketing budget, your word of mouth, so please share. Any more questions? No? Well, thank you so much, Tinashe. Like, we've kept you longer than any other guest. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge so freely. That was so informative. I could listen to you talk all day long. Thank you. No,
pleasure. It's been, thank you guys for tuning in. And I can do this again. Yeah. I'm always
I wish
everyone who
Tuani
knows
can.
me, I reply everyone's message, so feel free to get in touch anytime. Yeah.
Tuani,
Yes.
if your program is not full, if you could consider bringing him back to talk about wine pairing, which is a subject that is quite technical.
You know what?
I would really look forward if you get a chance.
I think maybe me and Tinashe, we should just do like a maybe an off study group session where he cooks some food and he tells me what to cook, and then we just open up some wine. He doesn't have any wine, but I can drink and cook.
All right.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll work that out, right, Tinashe? I'm all volunteering.
Yeah, we'll work on that.
Yeah, we'll work that out. We'll do something. Talk about food pairing.
Awesome, guys. Enjoy the lockdown. Stay safe.
All right. Thanks, you guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was one of the best sessions. Thank you so much.
See you guys next Tuesday. No.
Thank you.
See you guys on Tuesday for breakfast.
Awesome. Can't